Lately, I've just felt like I had better things to do than play Elden Ring. I've had a busy schedule, and my limited gaming time has generally been devoted to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Sometimes I'll play random chill games on stream too, to show off new demos and underrated games and such, but I think the last time I touched a Soulsborne was in January or December. Given that these games require a lot of skill and benefit a lot from memorization, I thought it would be a good idea to see if I still remember how to play them. I started up the game, almost considered watching the intro again, but decided it doesn't feel that new to me, and started making a character. Meet Prometheus, the Flame Knight. My goal was to make him a quality/faith build and focus on fire incantations. I've been wizard maxing lately, so I gave him more of an old and scraggly wizardly look. I still had to make sure he had positive canthal tilt though. If you have negative canthal tilt, it's over. You might as well try jumping. I decided to start as a vagabond, seeing how he already has a decent sword and armor. I could have also done a confessor, but the incantations he starts with are pretty irrelevant to the build I'm going for, and his armor is less fitting. The Prophet was the first class I ever played as, and I never want to make that mistake again. He sucks. I'd say you could argue that the Prophet has an even rougher start than the Wretch. I can't think of a single weapon I hate more than his short spear. His shield is bad, his armor is bad, and the catch flame incantation is just a slower melee attack that also drains FP. My best bet would be to pick the Vagabond for his weapon and armor loadout, beat Margit, then buy the Finger Seal and Fireball incantation. Vagabond starts off fat rolling, so the first thing I did was unequip the halberd so I could just use the longsword. I've done a halberd playthrough before, and they suck anyway. Clumsy as hell and whiff for no reason like it's Morrowind. I have never beaten the Grafted Scion on my first try unless it was New Game Plus, and I wasn't about to start now. I was flung down into the depths of Cardi B's vagina, and I decided I'd go through the tutorial area to warm up and to get the gesture at the end of it. I noticed the controls felt a little clumsy after becoming accustomed to other games. I guess you could describe it as slippery feeling. Compared to KCD2, which was what I had mostly been playing the past couple months, controlling my Elden Ring character felt like I was driving a car with an ultra-sensitive gas pedal. I figured the Soldier of Godric would be a good tool for practicing combat, getting used to my moveset again. However, he died in 2 hits. I went up the elevator and remembered the sealed-off path on my right as being one of the worst dungeons in the game. Well, part of the worst genre of dungeons. In case you never figured out this bit of Elden Ring lore, Hero's Grave is code for piece of shit. I got out into Limgrave and the sense of wonder was still there. Limgrave is probably my favorite starting area in a Soulsborne game. There's just this magic in the air. It feels like a land of endless potential, and I always do every little side activity. Every time I walk into Limgrave feels like the first time I made it to the open world in Oblivion again. I felt a little different this time though, a little like I had to switch things up. Every other time I've played the game, I've gone with the flow for the first few hours. This time I felt a little more ambitious. I was going to try to fight the Tree Sentinel early a couple times, and win or lose I was going to move on to beeline toward the Claymore. Two-handing a weapon still feels like the most natural playstyle for me. Something about sword and board just doesn't feel right. I tried to fight the Tree Sentinel a couple times, but couldn't beat him with either of my current weapons despite putting up a decent fight. I decided not to make this fight the central point of my stream, and simply move on, coming back after I found the Claymore. Beelining stuff in this game has always sort of felt wrong to me. The desire to change things up was still there, but I still had to stop along the way a few times to engage with what was in front of me. One thing about Limgrave is I don't want to miss any of the content. Firstly, because you need to be leveled up pretty well before you take on Stormveil and get runes stolen from you on every death, but also because all of it is so interesting and feels so rewarding early on. If I got the Sites of Grace and map icons and stuff but didn't complete the areas, I might forget to come back at a later date. Anyway, I did my version of beelining toward Castle Morn, ran directly toward the Claymore, then left and went back to doing things in order. The Claymore was much more useful against the Tree Sentinel. I also noticed that the Claymore had the Lion's Claw Ash of War by default, meaning I would never have to bother finding any new Ashes of War to apply to it. Someone in chat pointed out that it's the same move Artorias uses in Dark Souls. I have no idea how I never realized that before, but it's weird that they give it a lion-themed name instead of a wolf-themed one, if it was an Artorias special attack. Lions are generally associated with Ornstein in Dark Souls, or Radahn in Elden Ring, and neither of them have a move similar to this. Actually, I guess Radahn was given one in the DLC, but I've repressed that memory because that boss fight is dog shit. All these different RPGs need to get together and make up their minds about how browsing the map should work, because after getting used to the KCD map, I constantly pushed wrong buttons when browsing the Elden Ring map. I still couldn't beat the Knight's Cavalry, mostly because I hate the mounted combat and insisted upon fighting him on foot for the most part, so I upgraded my Claymore a couple times, then I stomped both him and the Tree Sentinel. I had to actually use my horse though. Did it always feel this janky fighting on horseback? Anyway, a Claymore and a dead Tree Sentinel within the first hour and a half is pretty good progress for me, seeing how I usually like to take my time. With that done, I decided to do all the dumb little stuff I usually do. Exploring, going down to the beach to meet Bach, beating an Everjail or two. At one point I found this little spot to jump down and fight one of these gravity guys and get an Ash of War. I swear I never found this area before. It's cool that you can still find new things when you come back with a fresh perspective. One thing about Elden Ring I'll never forget is you need to go to all these butthole looking things on the map. These are mines, where you find most of your upgrade materials. I can't believe I still remembered the bullshit exit to this dungeon. Coming back after being away from the series for a while, I can imagine this type of trickery must be insanely frustrating for someone who played Elden Ring as their first Soulsborne game. I caught onto it because I had played all the other games, but how would someone who hasn't learned to think like Miyazaki even know how to look for this? I also finally made the connection that the same way you can count on finding weapon upgrades in mines, you can usually count on finding summons and summoning upgrade materials in catacombs. I realized this while I was getting my reminder that imps, or shit gremlins as I call them, suck to fight. I tried to fight a Crucible Knight without parrying. This does not work. I decided it was time to beat Margit first. Despite spending 5,000 runes on Margit's Shackle, I forgot I had it and beat him without using it. Oh well, still did it my first try. Now I could go buy my Finger Seal and Flame Spell. Still didn't have the stats to use them though. Oh well, just need to level Faith a couple times. Anyway, time to go through that piece of shit hero's grave now. I have a Stone Sword key and I'm leveled up enough that it shouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The chariots, much like any other idea copied from Dark Souls 2, are cheap pieces of shit that cheat. Despite the fact that these things even change their path slightly to give you less time to run from them, I managed to defeat this worthless test of patience on my first try. I was now a few shit gremlins and a flamethrower away from my goal. The thing about this dungeon is that it's retarded and gay from beginning to end, so I had to grab the talisman quick before I got ambushed by 2 grafted scions. I was still doing almost no damage to them and died, but I managed to grab it. The Erd Tree's favor. With everything I needed for a successful build, I decided to go to this little plateau thing on the Weeping Peninsula and grab a memory stone. Every time I go up one of these wizard towers, I always think how cool it would be to live in one. I'd probably put a railing on the stairs though. By this point I was pretty drunk and kept singing about buttholes for some reason, so I knew I wouldn't have the energy to keep going much longer. Butthole... Butthole penis. I beat some gravity enemies with the power of Flat Earth, killed this stupid rock guy in the catacombs, and put the game aside until my next session. My next play session was fairly uneventful, still in Limgrave. Does Limgrave really have that much content, or is it just that all of it is really good? Well, okay, there's this one area west of the Weeping Peninsula that I'm not a huge fan of, but other than that, it's all stellar stuff. I also decided to let people summon me for some co-op. Pretty much every time they would get invaded by someone who had gear from Shadow of the Erd Tree. PvP has more twinks than fucking West Hollywood. After doing all the side content I could find or remember, I was finally ready to take on Stormveil. It wasn't as stressful as I remembered, actually. Usually the permanent rune loss on death makes me more hesitant to explore, but I got through most of it this time without any real trouble. Even found a bunch of the secret stuff. At the end of the session, I said I'd quit after the next death, then just didn't die for quite a while. I wound up in the stupid little spot by the entrance where you get a crossbow bolt shot at you from every direction. I never actually used this to get in, but this set me up to get the Site of Grace by the Divine Tower next run. Starting my next session, I had to get my bearings real quick and make sure I wasn't missing anything before I fought Godric. The Divine Tower Site of Grace was locked behind a door that won't open until I kill Godric, which isn't ideal, but at least I got past his pet lion. I spent too much time retracing my steps, making sure I didn't miss any cool items, and then I went on to kill Godric. Was he always this weak? I didn't even summon and I killed him my first try. I don't remember him being that easy. After that, I took the ridiculously complicated path down to the bottom of the castle, which I can't believe I actually remembered, and beat the copy-paste camera hog monster to get the anti-basilisk talisman. This isn't super useful often, but when you need it, you'll be really glad you have it. Now I had to go to the first big slowdown point of the game, Liurnia. This area has some cool stuff and a good aesthetic, but the good content is spread so thin across a bunch of empty space filled with lame but time-sucking enemies. If you actually stop to fight every flower and every Albinauric during your first playthrough, let me know, because I can't imagine taking the time to engage with all this. I also did the Shifra River area, and I pretty much feel the same way about most of the underground areas in the game as I do about Liurnia. If you want to get Ronnie's ending, you have to put up with these Hollow Earth areas way past when they overstay their welcome. There was no real reason for me to do this, but it was part of getting the full experience of the game again. I'll need that path to the Great Jar soon anyway. My chat wouldn't shut up about some golden scarab talisman and how I needed to get it to get the extra XP. So after a while, I abandoned my tedious quest through the Swamp of Monotony and went on over to the Swamp of AIDS, to find where they said this thing was. They gave me directions to this weird cave that I've never seen before in any of my playthroughs. Amazing how there were still new things to find even on what's probably my 10th playthrough. I have no idea how anyone ever figured out that you can jump down these trees without dying. I got to the dungeon and found out it was some shitty Scarlet Rot thing. I feel like my chat thought I was just going to take the Scarlet Rot on the chin and force my way through this dungeon, but I'm a faith build, and I vaguely remember where the Flame Cleanse Me incantation is, so it was time to work smarter, not harder. Unfortunately, that means it's back to Liurnia to scour the northern area until I find the Fire Monk's camp. There's a lot of other stuff to do along the way too. I stumbled my way through Liurnia looking for the Flame Cleanse Me incantation, and I really wish I had more to say about the area. It doesn't feel like Liurnia really has its own identity. It has some magic stuff, some fire monk camps, some Albinauric stuff, some gloomy areas, but mostly it just has a bunch of empty space with a little breadcrumb for you to find every minute or so. Nothing major, just enough to keep you from giving up. Its location right in the middle of the game, both geographically and in terms of how it connects you to so many other areas, makes it just feel like this no man's land that you have to pass through. A giant airport terminal to get from Limgrave to Altus, and to start getting to the Halig Tree, and to start getting to Mogwin's Palace. It has 2 legacy dungeons, both with a sort of Hogwarts theme, but it still feels to me like any identity that it has is derived from its usefulness to get to late game areas. I really want to like the atmosphere of it, but it all just feels so disjointed, like it was where the devs put all the stuff they had left over after making the rest of the levels. It's so aimless feeling that I don't even think I remembered to make a note of when I killed the dragon for the glintstone key. Luckily, I picked the right side of Liurnia to go through, and I found the Fire Monk camp and the anti-AIDS incantation. I went on back to that secret cave with the golden scarab, and luckily once I had my new incantation, I was able to beat it in one try. The final boss was 2 Clean Rot Knights, which is a decent challenge even in the end game. These guys easily got staggered and posture broken by claymore jump attacks, though. Good thing, too, I would have gone insane if I had to go through this stupid cave again. Not a lot else to say for this segment, other than I beat the Black Knife Catacombs, too. I'm not the biggest fan of Catacombs levels. They're kinda ugly and repetitive, so when I go through one like this, I kinda hate when it has some kinda sneaky gimmick to keep you wandering forever. I remembered this one, but I know there's another where the dungeon looks like an endless loop later on that I totally forget how to solve. Maybe the puzzle catacombs would be more fun if catacomb levels didn't already wear out their welcome, I don't know. Like I've never thought, wow, this whole area is a bunch of dark, narrow corridors with dim blue light and imps. I really want to spend my whole play session here. Still better than a hero's grave, I suppose. Whoever put such good rewards in levels with those bullshit chariots was a straight-up saboteur. I finished up Liurnia by doing both of the legacy dungeons back to back. I felt a little more adventurous than usual in Rea Lucaria, but it's still insanely hard to fully explore this dungeon. In Caria Manor, I was quickly reminded that the Finger Creepers are one of the worst enemies in the game. I thought fire stunned them every time you hit them with it, but apparently not. I generally hate the enemies that rush you down and do a roll catch stun lock combo. At one point I ran out of mana and had to use fire pots. My chat didn't believe me when I said I never run out of fire to throw, so I crafted 4 more fire pots immediately, just to show them not to underestimate me. Now it's off to Caelid to get the other half of that Dectus medallion. I couldn't for the life of me remember where Fort Feroth was, but I managed to find it and just speed ran it. The fuck I look like standing and fighting against 2 harpies. That's sucker shit. I beat most of Caelid just trying to find this shit. I also got the red hot wet blade so I can finally make flame art weapons. That took me way longer to find than it should have. Apparently you can't find it if you warp inside the castle. You have to take this garbage path around the back where I fell off of a barely visible gap in the rocks at one point, climb down the battlements and open a door that only opens from the inside, which somehow magically causes another door in a different part of the castle to open. Oh yeah, and I killed Blackguard Boggart because my chat kept telling me I needed his Iron Fist weapons. I beat Radahn on my first try with him. These things are actually really good as long as you aren't fighting something with a wonky hitbox that it's hard to stand sufficiently close to. I finished up that Celia town, got the gold needle for Millicent, then remembered I don't really care and decided to go do something else. Caelid can be fun in small doses, but it has to be one of the areas that gets old the fastest. Annoying bird and dinosaur dog enemies, annoying color scheme, annoying scarlet rot. I was mostly done anyway because I had unintentionally completed a lot of the area while looking for that medallion half. It was now time to head for the Starfall Crater. You see, just like in real life, the Earth is hollow and there's an ancient civilization buried in the middle of it. I thought this was going to be tedious since the underground areas are extremely samey, but I managed to get through it really fast. If you know where you're going and don't try to do all the optional stuff, you can get in and back out with the Mimic Tear and the Finger Slayer blade within under an hour. I actually think this area discourages the kind of mindset that a game like Elden Ring is meant to encourage. I had way more fun with it when I ignored all the exploration and just beelined the critical path. It's odd because I never felt this way in a place like Limgrave or the Altus Plateau. I guess this area just wasn't meant to be the main focus of a whole play session. Anyway, now I had a Finger Slayer blade for Ronnie, a glintstone key I still had to give to Tops, a Mimic Tear to level up, Dawn's armor to buy, Fia's questline to progress, just in case I feel like doing it later. After I was done running my errands, I decided that even though I had entered Altus through the Lift of Dectus already, I would still take the back path through the ruin-strewn precipice. I got distracted by a few optional areas on the long ride there, and once I got to the precipice, it was actually a lot easier than I remembered. I'm not sure why. I think I got to it around the same time in the playthrough I usually do, if not earlier. Sometimes I'll complete all of Altus and then come back to this area just so I can complete a Volcano Manor contract that lets you get the best armor in the game. Either I'm getting better or these fist weapons really are a game changer. I didn't step on a single poison trap on the way up to the precipice, and when I got there I actually managed to defeat the harpies with relative ease. I even remembered to switch out my flame infusion on my weapon for a holy infusion, so the magma worm was an easy fight too. I was finally in Altus Plateau, the only area that's as cool as Limgrave. The Golden Light, the military camps, the capital city on the horizon. This area really conveys to you that something big is coming. There's a good mix of squishy enemies and big bruisers, and nothing really gets overused to death. For some variety, there's even the spooky Deathblight area in the center. I don't really care for this area. I don't see any reason why worm faces need to exist. You mean you looked at a basilisk and said, I want this thing to be bigger and have a grab attack? Hard pass. From an artistic standpoint, though, I can't deny they did a good job making an enemy that inspires a reaction of, ew, I don't want that thing to touch me. The way it vomits up worms while it spews Deathblight is a nice touch. My exploration seems to be less planned and more chaotic. I was back to ending up in new places by accident or by a sudden whim, like a new player again. I'm not sure if that's due to forgetting my usual methods or just a change in mindset making me more spontaneous. I went to this stupid Mirage Rise where you have to break 3 seals to reveal the tower with loot in it, and I decided right then and there that I wasn't gonna read their stupid map. I stumbled on one of the seals though, and I remembered roughly where the other was, so I still got into that tower. I was skipping all over, just hitting up random areas. I found the Eleonora fight, discovered a hero's grave that I'll probably never go through, beat Windmill Village, and cleared most of the Deathblight area, save for the boss fight by the Minor Erdtree. I could go to Lanedale right away, but it's time to do another quick run through Revoltus to make sure I didn't miss any cool stuff, then set out for the Volcano Manor. I decided to record offline because my audience was getting tired of Elden Ring always being the game I played, and I didn't want to bludgeon them over the head with it. Plus, it was a weeknight. I set off for Mount Gelmir. I went through some military camps to the south, tried a couple different angles, but I just wasn't satisfied. I needed to take that north route around so I could get to the map as quickly as possible. I've never been an intuitive navigator, so I always feel better with a map to reference. The Shaded Castle would come next, after I had the map fragment from Mount Gelmir. I went across the bridge and entered the Chaos. I remembered this area well enough. It was the first optional area that I had no clue existed and found it all on my own without even knowing what it was. I remember the sense of progress as I made it further and further into this area, excited to know exactly what it was. That said, none of the optional stuff is really crucial for my build. I refused to touch the Abductor Virgin's battle with a 10-foot pole, fought Anastasia again while going the wrong way to try to find the map, climbed some tower, ignored a shitty hero's grave hidden on top of the mountains, and avoided the most obvious Patches trap of all time. Fun fact, the first time I played this game, I killed Patches here. The Rainbow Stone pathway leading up to a cliff was just so obvious, and when I saw a bald head gleaming at me from the bushes, I immediately knew what was up and started swinging. I had no idea that through some shitty butterfly effect this would lock me out of the best armor in the game. Oh well, the fucker deserved it. By the way, this is the first time I noticed that this merchant on the mountainside sells the Confessor set because the church probably sent Confessors to try to assassinate Rykard, and they died and left their gear. The way these merchants call to you sounds so much like a setup that I'm almost disappointed it's never an ambush when you go toward them.
Welcome, dear customer. Yes, right this way.
I got to the Falling Star Beast, and the hit detection against him was almost bad enough to get me to level up a different weapon to face him. I say this without need for nuance or qualifiers. This weapon does not work against this boss. I was robbed of multiple hits I deserved to land, and robbed about half as many dodges. After giving my controller a quick thrashing, I remembered that melee wasn't all I was built for. I now adopted this kind of mid-range brawling strategy, throwing charged Black Flame when I had some distance, and hitting the beast with charged heavy attacks when it would charge in and I could get all the way underneath it. You have to practically try to clip inside of this thing for the game to consider it in range for my fist weapon's heavy attack, but it worked maybe 2/3 of the time. I also learned that Black Flame was good for staggering. Using this more diverse playstyle, I was able to beat the beast and make my way to the manor. By the way, these invisible scarabs that you have to track by your footsteps to hit them, these fucking suck. I have never felt anything but relief after killing one. All the worse, the item I got for it was an archery Ash of War. I keep meaning to try out a bow build, but magic is just so much cooler for a ranged weapon. And even melee weapon Ashes of War seem cooler than bows. I still remember my Stormblade build, that shit was easy mode. I made my way around the back of the manor after activating the Site of Grace. I had to fight a couple more finger creepers, and then the map fragment was there. Since I already came this far and I hate myself, I figured I might as well keep going and fight that giant worm face standing over there. Luckily he didn't try his Deathblight Worm Vomit. Is that the name of a grindcore band? But he just kept trying to grab me like a dumbass, and I'd dodge and punch him in the kneecap. After I beat him, I went a little further and found an ulcerated tree spirit. The way he appeared in a black cloud made me think he was going to have Deathblight attacks, but luckily he didn't. I read this enemy's attacks pretty well, almost like I have a whole lot of experience fighting him. I wound up killing him with minimal effort. Good boss, they should put him in the game like 5 more times. Time to put in my job application with these bunch of idiots at the manor. Look, I don't actually care about your vision, okay? I just want the blasphemous blade and the bull goat armor. They sent me to kill Old Knight Ishtvan all the way back in Limgrave, and during this fight my suspicion that the Iron Fists would be useless in PvP was only strengthened. Any kind of human-type enemy with a medium roll and good poise almost shuts this thing down completely. No range means anyone with a longer weapon and decent poise can almost always force a hit trade. I barely managed it, but I killed him on my first attempt. If I have to do actual PvP, I'm switching back to my claymore. They gave me another target back at the manor. Someone who looks like a guy but has a girly name, Riley, I think. Suburban white chick name all the way. I went to my local Starbucks and actually had a lot more luck punching this one to death than Ishtvan. On the way I found another hidden cave, and after the fight I was at the Shaded Castle. I actually like this place, but we'll come back to it soon. I returned my quest and got 3 more from the manor. The important one was the one from Patches, to kill Tragoth. This was why I ran through the ruin-strewn precipice early, so I could just warp back to the room you fight him in. It was a good fight, but I got the better of him. I now have the best armor in the game, but I don't have the stats to equip it without heavy rolling. This means I have to do something I've dreaded. I have to fight the Great Jar's butt monkeys so I can get the best equipment load upgrade charm in the game. I slammed my dick in my desk drawer a couple times for good luck and went off to fight this dumb shit. You know, in a way it's nice to play this game off stream. I'm so used to streaming every time I play it, but playing it off stream in a single player is a quiet meditative experience. The community I've built is cool, but a couple hours into a stream it gets to be like we're all rotting each other's brains. Playing the game in silence can be nice once in a while. I went on to kill the Great Jar's dickheads and quickly found out the ball punchers don't work against them. I had to bring out the claymore and get some range on them or they just spam jump attacks and keep me away. A charged claymore heavy is actually really good for countering these humanoid NPCs' attempts to run up and attack. If you have good timing, they'll run into it almost every time. It could never work on an actual person though. A lot of PvP relies a little too much on your opponent behaving in a certain predictable way, like no actual person would be stupid enough to run into this more than once. I got the Mark Ripito deadlift talisman and still couldn't wear my fucking bull goat armor. So from now on, every level is going into endurance. It was time to do the Shaded Castle, which is fucking annoying but also beautiful in a way. The poison swamp forces you to slow down, take breaks, and really soak in the vibe. By this point I was streaming in Discord, and if I unmuted the footage it would get me a community guidelines violation. Somehow this Shaded Castle place didn't look as cool as I remembered it. Maybe it was because it was too sunny, or maybe it's because I'm a miserable bastard who can't enjoy simple things anymore. Anyway, I beat Elmer Fudd on my first attempt and was ready to move on. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to get to Rykard by doing the Volcano Manor dungeon, or by fulfilling the rest of the contracts. With the drunkenness and brain rot that come along with streaming in full effect, I rolled into Lanedell and started killing stuff. Something about busting into the Golden City and killing the people dancing in the streets feels like a "wait, are we the baddies" moment. I really wasn't trying to spend too long getting lost in these confusing ass streets, but I made sure to get to the Round Table Hold knockoff and do the Volcano Manor contract in there. I'm not doing the goddamn Shunning Grounds, okay? It's a terrible place that's only useful if you're going for one of the 2 Destroy the World endings. I don't remember much of this because I was a few drinks deep and mostly paying attention to talking shit in voice chat, but it felt pretty easy to defeat Morgott. Now it was time to go to one of my least favorite places, the mountaintops of the Giants. After running some largely unproductive errands to make sure I wasn't missing out on anything, I realized the only path there was all the way back through Lanedell past the tower. I made my way there and started my ascent. At this point I feel like I'm forcing things. I've gotten sick of playing this over and over, but I have to finish the video at this point. I started this in mid-spring, when magic was in the air and the world was coming alive again. Now the dull yellow heat of summer is setting in, and I don't want to spend time on parts of this game that aren't either necessary or good. I went to the tower, getting sucked into a dark abyss and having to fight a couple omens along the way. Yeah, the Four Kings, that's absolutely a fight that needed to be included in another game as well. I activated Morgoth's rune and then went down below to the Forbidden Lands. Here at the Flat Earth Ice Wall, I really couldn't be bothered to do much. So I sprinted past the Vulgar Militia, which have really leveled up to the point where we could call them the downright perverted militia at this point, and fought another Black Blade Kindred fucking tongue twister thing that I killed in one try. I moved on to the mountaintops of the Giants, an area that seems cool, but that is just begging you to get out of there as fast as possible. I had to go to this first area, the Zamor Ruins, to get a bell bearing to buy more smithing stones and level up my balls. This enemy sucks, and you'll almost never land a charge attack on it without trading hits or getting a lucky whiffed enemy attack. Kinda makes my whole build hard to use. I beat the first one after a few tries and decided to just sneak past the other two and get the bell bearing. After upgrading my weapon, I moved on and found some shitty catacombs that I thought the special flame talisman was in, but it turned out to be this awful dungeon that traps you in an infinite loop. You know the one I was talking about earlier? Okay, so this is a puzzle dungeon that reminds me of a Dungeons & Dragons dungeon designed by a DM who hates you. If you just keep following the beaten path, it'll lead you in circles forever. I found this absolute Giga Chad message from a guy saying to go back to the lift, which I thought I remembered to do anyway, but it's good that someone is ruining this trickery. God, they really thought they were cooking with this bullshit. I made it through, claimed my mediocre reward, and proceeded onward, ignoring everything I could along the way. Not this giant, though. These archer giants will ruin your day if you don't take them out. Along the way, I was reminded that to get to the Halig Tree, Melania's secret area, I was going to have to go through Castle Sol, the Castle of the Sun. Well, except the lore for the Eclipse Shodel says the sun is eclipsed over Castle Sol, so it's Castle Dark Soul. Anyway, I finished up the last assassination for the Volcano Manor and I went to find this castle. It's amazing how easy most of this area is if you don't engage in extraneous butt fuckery. The only real challenge is this warping knight in the castle, who you should know to just run past because you can see a sight of grace behind him in the church. I picked up the Eclipse Shodel, which I was foolish enough to try to use in PvE during my first playthrough, and headed to the boss of the castle, Commander Niall. Normally I use the Mimic tier for this guy, but I'm trying to hold off on summoning until at least Melania, so my usual logic of if he summons two guys it's only fair for me to summon one doesn't apply here. This fight is hard solo. Luckily I can focus down one of his summons as soon as it appears. This took me a few tries, and I was actually using buffs too. I was just complaining about being bored of this game, and honestly being bored with many things in life lately. But this actually got my blood pumping. It was good to actually feel something again, even if it was mostly anger. Sorry, this is a different type of edgy than my usual viewers are used to. At this point, I'm almost using this as a diary. Anyway, I made the Commander Niall before me and got the medallion half I was after. I kept ignoring nearly everything and made it to the Fire Giant. The Fire Giant is a fight that requires a lot of horseback combat if you don't absolutely hate yourself. I usually blast Winged Hussars by Sabaton during this fight since it's my go-to cavalry anthem, but due to copyright reasons I can't do that. So instead, here's my rendition of the song of the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaxmen. Our country reeks of trees, our yaks are really large, and they smell like rotting beef carcasses. And we have to clean up after them, and our saddle sores are the best. We proudly wear women's clothing, and searing sand blows up our skirts. And the buzzards, they soar overhead, and poisonous snakes will devour us whole. Our bones will bleach in the sun. And we will probably go to hell, and that is our great reward for being the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaxmen. Anyway, I needed to level up my claymore because the fist weapons basically don't work on horseback. Only this didn't work either, so I had to do this ridiculous strategy where I kept mounting and dismounting my horse and trying to land standing charge attacks against him. The main reason I hate this guy is because he's first and foremost a patience check. This was the second time in a while that Elden Ring has truly challenged me, and I guess I should be thankful for that. But god, this guy sucks. I miss being a mage and cheesing him with Kama de Jure. If I had to do Farum Azula right after this, I might actually kill myself. So now it's time to go kill Rykard and get the Blasphemous Blade. I beat Rykard in 2 attempts, got the Blasphemous Blade, and moved on. Farum Azula sucks. The dragon takes forever to kill. You have to hit these guys so many fucking times. That's why one of the ancient dragons is named 40 Smacks. There's this area that I thought had an ancient somber stone in it, but it just had some bullshit instead. Then there's a Godskin duo who I almost always summon for. But since I'm not trying to do that this time, I just cheesed them with the Blasphemous Blade L2. At one point I got him down to 1 hit and then died. Pissed me right off. I think my controller doesn't vibrate as well now that I spiked it on the ground following that event. Anyway, I could now just buy enough stuff to level up everything but my Blasphemous Blade, so I did that. Now I can use fists or dual swords for the final stretch of the game. I'm tired as hell from work, and my 3 choices are to either continue with Farum Azula, go to the Halig Tree, or fight Moog. I started making this in March or April. It's now June. I feel like I'm really forcing it, but I need to wrap this up before I get distracted with other videos again. When you have the kind of ADD I do, you have to plan your life around the belief that unfinished projects will simply disappear if you go too long without looking at them. I have a glass of wine in my vape. Let's do this. I start wandering around Farum Azula. What I really want is an ancient somber smithing stone, but I can't seem to remember where it is, and this area is super annoying to explore thoroughly, especially when using these boxing gloves against the jumpy Beastman enemies. I go this way and that, fighting all these enemies. There's like 3 dragons I end up fighting. I really just want to get this smithing stone without too much work, but I'm picking up everything except what I want. Eventually I remember it's on the critical path, but I just have to run past this dragon to get it. A lot of these beastmen are sleeping, so I just have to hit them as hard as I can before they notice me, and then I can finish them off quickly. I just barely make it to the lift to the site of Grace by Malekith, but I'm not going in there just yet. No, I have to level up my Blasphemous Blade and go pick up this talisman in an area where I was sure an NPC was supposed to invade me. Whatever, I beat the Sentinel right before Malekith pretty easily. But like I said, I'm not going in yet because I don't know if that'll lock me out of the Halig Tree if I finish burning the Erd Tree before using the secret medallion. Probably not, but better safe than sorry. It's now time to get to the Halig Tree. I'm feeling significantly better today than I was yesterday, probably because I actually slept for a change. So let's do this! I ignored the secret drop-down route in the dungeon leading there because I pretty much have everything my character needs at this point. And I went out into the snowy wilderness. This place sucks too. It sounds like I'm just hating on everything at this point, but a good rule of thumb is if it snows, it blows. This wolf archer pissed me right off. The fucking audacity to stun lock me and then ride off before I can hit back. I would have been so mad if I had lost that fight. I've never actually fought this giant ghost guy, by the way. I got the map put Latina by Big Latina and then headed to Ordina, or Dina, whatever, the smallest level in the game to irritate me as much as it does. If you don't have the Sentry's Torch, you'll just get jump scared by backstabs that take at least half your health from invisible enemies. Fortunately, I have it, but this is still no cakewalk. Right now I have to light 3 candles. One is past one of these invisible assassins who's already sorta hard to beat while keeping your torch in one hand. A couple are more or less in the open, and then there's another one past this bullshit archer rooftop choke point that rivals Anor Londo for how bullshit it is. I surprisingly get the first 3 lit on my first try, and then struggle to find the 4th. Wait, did I say there was 3? There's 4. Anyway, I get killed once and then get it on my next try. This area feels like an actual nightmare if you don't have the special torch, and could actually be creepypasta material if they did some shit like making it so once you die in the Everjail, you like sometimes get ambushed by the same assassins in the light version of the town when your guard is down. Anyway, they don't do that, thank God. Anyway, it's Halig Tree time. I actually like this area, at least from an aesthetic perspective. There's some unfair shit here, but you miss most of it if you stay on the beaten path. I normally explore more, but I'm on my 3rd month of putting this video together, so nah. This area reminds me of the Channelwood age in Myst. I love a good gloomy but fancy treehouse, like a Victorian mansion in arboreal form. I just realized that my Blasphemous Blade and Claymore build is perfect for mowing down hordes of zombies. Big damage over big areas, and healing when I get a kill. Twin Greatswords may be the meta if we ever have a zombie apocalypse. Anyway, I did just barely more than the bare minimum to get to this side passage to beat the shit out of Fred Glintstone, and then went on to punch Loretta to get to death first try. It was around this time that I noticed the cape I was wearing, and noticed I wasn't in a full Bullgoat set. I still didn't have quite enough endurance to wear it while dual-wielding greatswords. There's no point in Bullgoat unless you're full goat, so I stuck with the metal boxing gloves for now, and made a mental note to level more endurance. This next area is just a bunch of tight corridors and ambushes anyway, so being able to rip through these jabronis at close range is important. I got to this part with 2 Clean Rot Knights and managed to kill them both the first time around. I continued on and went past this stupid crossbow kill zone. I remembered this being cheap as hell, so I went around the flank only to meet 2 more Clean Rot Knights. I didn't get so lucky this time, and now I had about 10,000 runes just laying on the ground depending on me to pick them up. I tried to rush back and the first pair of Clean Rot Knights followed me for way fucking longer than they should have, and the runes were gone for good. Some people say this game teaches them to accept loss, but those people are weak and easily influenced. After taking my controller to Pound Town, I tried a different approach. I saw the Tree Guardian over on the far right side and decided to jump to him and beat him. I've beaten at least 100 of these by now, so it was a pretty easy fight. I got to the end of the shortcut and realized it took me right back to the first pair of Clean Rot Knights who killed me instantly. Elio and Brian are right, this game fucking sucks. I'm sure if I had been streaming during this part, I would have been the only one without a sense of humor about it. Anyway, I was pissed off enough by this point that I decided to just brute force shit. After one more attempt falling just short of reaching the site of grace, putting my controller's life at risk again, I beat the shit out of the first pair of knights and then just said fuck it, I'll run past the crossbows now. I juked him out and just barely made it past the 3 dumb fucks trying to body block me and got to the site of grace. By now my patience was completely gone, and I tried to take on all 3 of these Crystallians at once with pure melee. This of course didn't work. I never was the kind of guy who really valued patience or had any internal motivation to learn it, but I had to use my kit here. Time to use fireballs to pull them one at a time, and now it's an easy fight. I went and beat up that stupid tree guy too, just for the runes. I ran through this stupid poison swamp. I still don't get why they thought it would be fun to make it slow you down. There isn't even a ring to prevent it in this game like there is in Dark Souls. These bug people raising their thoraxes into the air has got to be the hottest fucking thing in the game, though. I knew the Great Shield Talisman was in a super annoying spot in this next place, so let's load up on alcohol and nicotine and get to it. It actually ended up not being that bad. I rejected the whole woods area and went down the elevator. I was now set to take on Melania, but my stream chat thinks I'm cute when I'm mad, so I'll save that for stream. I decided that next I'd take on Moog. I went to his shitty blood palace that reminds me of the one shitty graveyard from Dark Souls 3 that I only like playing through when it's Halloween season, and I invaded Vare. With his white mask and bouquet, he looks just like Jason Menzinger, hapless nice guy and legally distinct entity from Jason Voorhees. Look at him, bro really said, "Baby, baby, I'll be good to you." After the beatdown I gave him, I bet he won't want to be an asshole anymore. I ignored the mobs of jabronis and got more loot, then went up to fight Moog. After trying a few things, I decided that two-handing the Blasphemous Blade was the right way to take him on. His whole moveset is just roll catches and heal punishes. What a dickhead. This fight actually got my heart rate up, as its second phase requires some serious focus while under huge amounts of pressure. I beat him and finally managed to level up enough endurance to equip 2 great swords with the full Bullgoat. Not now, Leda. If I do a DLC playthrough, it'll be separate from this. Having done everything I want to do off-stream besides this, I headed toward Malekith. In his first phase as Garank, he has a simple formula. He can combo anything into another attack except when he casts one of his beast incantations, or his circular swing where he drags his knife on the ground. When you see flying stones, it's always safe to attack, except for if you threw a bunch of rocks in the air, in which case they're going to come back down and you should run. His second phase, when he turns into a goth anime protagonist, is a lot less predictable. The secret to this phase is that you basically just don't get a turn to play the game. But sometimes he runs face first into a Taker's Flame Ash of War. I woke up in a burned lane dell and decided that was enough of this shit for today. Now for the part I saved for stream. A boss rush consisting of Gideon Ofnir, Godfrey, Melania, and the Elden Beast. Gideon went down on the second try, but I did notice that this guy just doesn't stagger. I was hitting him with one charged heavy after another, and it just wasn't doing anything. Using the iron ball fists really helped to highlight just how good of an idea it is to smother him and not give him room to cast a bunch of spells. I moved on to Godfrey, and at first it looked like it was impossible to spot his openings clearly enough to hit him with the charged heavies, but somehow I managed to beat him on my second try as well. Now it was time for the main event. No, not the Elden Beast. I had to beat Melania before the night progressed and I got too many beers in me. Unfortunately, I started drinking a lot faster during this fight because Melania makes me want to jump into oncoming traffic. The fist weapons just don't cut it against her. She's too jumpy, and they sometimes lead you to end up right in her face winding up when she does a waterfowl dance attack. The thing about the waterfowl dance is that sure, you can dodge all of it, but not if you get caught in the wrong spot when it starts. Generally, you want to be far enough away that the first half of the first flurry just misses you, then you can dodge through the rest. Her final flurry does this thing where it confuses the lock-on system and makes you dodge right into it. So if there's even time to fiddle around with things this much, it's good to unlock on the third flurry. If you get caught in a bad position, sometimes Raptor the Mists will save you, but it's not enough on its own, and sometimes you just get unlucky with it. I have managed to survive it at close range by mashing dodge at the beginning and carefully timing the dodges for the second and third flurries, but that first flurry just requires luck to dodge. You'll never avoid the whole thing if you're underneath her trying to look up her skirt when she starts it. For this reason, it's a good idea to bait out her waterfowl dance. She can only do this once for each third of her health she loses during her first phase, and once you know this, you can try to trigger it and then run away. This becomes a risk-reward thing because sometimes you just can't seem to bait it out when you want, and you'll miss too many opportunities to counterattack her if all you do is wait for it. The best thing to do after each third of her health is to only attack during openings after her attacks, and don't try to combo her. Just hit once or twice and then create distance. Also, you want weapons you can swing in a wide arc. I used the Blasphemous Blade in my right hand and a Cold-Infused Claymore in my left. This lets you proc Frostbite and then reset it with the fire damage from the Blasphemous Blade. Just another way to squeeze in a little extra burst damage. Eventually I found the right rhythm for when to dodge and when to just try to smack her out of her attack windups, and made it to the second stage. I swear I've never had such awful luck with dodging her AIDS Flower attack. It took me a minute to figure out that when I sprinted around her side and behind her, I had to really stick close to her. I thought I was sticking close the first time, but it wasn't close enough. Once the AIDS Flower blooms, you need to be standing out of range and either buffing, healing, or hitting her with ranged magic. This is valuable time to do extra damage or balance the fight in your favor. I hit her with Blasphemous Blade L2s, so I wouldn't even have to bother switching to my talisman to throw fireballs. The healing helped too. I got into a rhythm of hitting her with 2 L2s, then drinking my blue flask the first time, and then hitting her with 3 L2s if she did it the second time. Her second phase honestly just feels like a gimmick. Somehow the waterfowl dance isn't even intimidating anymore, but it just feels like she can kill you in the most random ways. I managed to beat her with no summons and no Ashes of War, and have enough sanity left to go take on the Elden Beast. Radagon is an absolute jabroni who crumples like paper when you hit him with Iron Ball heavy attacks. The Elden Beast kept killing me, and each time I started over I absolutely bullied Radagon. Somehow in the Elden Beast fight I managed to master toggling the lock-on and off on the fly. Some of this shit is cheap, but if you're patient, he's very manageable. I decided not to use Torrent for this fight, which honestly might have been stupid because this fucker makes you chase him around for half the fight. After Melania, the Elden Beast felt like a breeze, and the fight was mostly uneventful. Having beaten Elden Ring again, here are my final thoughts. This game starts out absolutely magical. The world really opens up to you and there's always more to do. The content is all insanely fun and engaging in Limgrave, and engaging with all of it can set you up for a solid rest of the game. Unfortunately, in Liurnia, it seems to lose focus and become a bit disjointed, almost like this area doesn't really know what it wants to be. There's some mediocre content and some good content, but it's all spread so thin that it feels like your time is being wasted a little bit. You can go to Caelid whenever you want, and going there early is a common beginner's trap, or way to get the greatsword early on. I don't like to tackle all of Caelid at once, as the oppressive atmosphere and harshness of the area gets to be a bit much to take in one shot, and the Dragon Barrow is much higher level than the rest of it. Altus Plateau is a return to the kind of greatness that you find in Limgrave. Mount Gelmir is a nice little diversion as well, although it can be a bit tedious and messy if you're absolutely determined to find everything there. Altus has this interesting thing where most of it is bright and colorful, but toward the middle of the area there's this foreboding, death blight-laden area. If you're into horror-type stuff, it's cool. It's really representative of how the Golden Order's splendor is dependent on sweeping many things under the rug. This is also reflected by the city of Leyndell, in which you can find the Subterranean Shunning Grounds, a brutal dungeon where unwanted mutant children are banished. Leyndell itself is a beautiful and content-rich, if sometimes hard to navigate, legacy dungeon. Unfortunately, the game really starts to drag after Leyndell. Forbidden Lands, Mountaintops of Giants, and Consecrated Snowfield are all just dog shit. Frustrating, aimless, and boring areas that are best off rushed through as much as possible. Farum Azula is okay, I guess. It's not bad, but I'd recommend taking a break from the critical path before going through it, just because of how draining the previous area was. It's a cool concept and looks good and doesn't have anything blatantly unfair or patience testing, but it will absolutely finish off a player who's fatigued from the Mountaintops of Giants. The Halig Tree is an area that starts off beautiful with a real sense of wonder to it, and gradually morphs into, what if Leyndell was trying to cheap shot you constantly? The only thing left to mention is the underground areas. They're interesting, but there's no reason to have so many of them. It feels copy-pasted for a while, with only bits of variety being the Lake of Rot and Deeproot Depths, which are actually worse. I'd say it overstays its welcome, but it's a completely optional area, and you can simply stop exploring it once you get bored with it. That's what I did on this playthrough. It doesn't help that what's likely the first part of it you'll encounter, Shifra River, is probably the worst part. It's like someone combined Liurnia with that Dark Souls 3 area before the Abyss Watchers. Overall, whether or not you enjoy this game depends on how you play it. You need to learn to savor the good areas, power through the bad areas, and read the map to make sure you don't miss areas that have a high likelihood of containing important things. I'm sure that I could play this game in a clunky and awkward way and end up hating it, but you would almost have to be trying to avoid engaging with the content in order to have this kind of experience. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, which occasionally tries to do too much. I would still put this in my top 10 games of all time. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. This has been a very long and very time-consuming look at Elden Ring. I would say it still holds up. How about you? I dodged that! Piss explosion! Piss explosion!